The Imperial Nursery was an fortress, built to withstand a volcanic eruption. Inside, 3 infant dragons, each in a separate containment ring, pulsed with uncontrollable heat. The air hummed with temperature barriers, a constant battle against the raw power these creatures emitted. For the caretakers, it was a nightmare. Short shifts were mandatory, but burns and exhaustion were still common. No one could get the dragons calm enough to feed them properly. From behind layers of protective shielding, the Emperor watched the crises unfold. In just 6 days, 12 handlers had quit. 2 were in the hospital. It wasn't that the dragons were malicious. They were simply reacting to the stress and confinement of their environment. Every traditional method had been tried. Imperial doctrine relied on restraint and command, but each attempt only made the situation worse, increasing their instability. Specialists flocked to the capital from every corner of the empire. Famed beast tamers, hardened military wardens, even psychic regulators. Each one arrived with a new theory, a new technique, but they all shared the same flawed foundation: dominance, and every single one of them failed. The dragons grew weaker, refusing all food. The medical projections were grim, predicting a rapid decline. It seemed the Empire's most prized assets were destined to perish in their own nursery. Then, she arrived. A human nurse, part of a low-level medical exchange program. She had no rank, no authority. Her background wasn't in handling mythical beasts, but in neonatal intensive care on high-gravity worlds, caring for the most fragile of infants. Silently, she reviewed the mountains of incident data, the failed attempts, the escalating stress responses, the declining vital signs. Then, she made a simple request: temporary access to the nursery. Given the desperation, it was approved, but only under heavy supervision. She entered the chamber without any armor, clad only in insulated fabric and biometric sensors. The guards watched, ready for the worst. But she didn't approach the containment rings. Instead, she sat on the floor, a safe distance away. She began to slow her breathing, a deliberate, controlled rhythm. The sensors tracking her biometrics showed her heart rate and body temperature dropping measurably. On the other side of the room, the environmental sensors registered the change, and almost immediately, the dragons reacted. The furious waves of heat they were emitting began to lessen. Their erratic, panicked movements slowed. Their attention, once fixed on the confining walls, shifted to the small human figure sitting on the floor. For the first time since they had hatched, not a single containment alarm triggered. The room stabilized. The nurse then began to hum, a low, rhythmic sound produced through controlled, steady breathing. The frequency was constant. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a challenge. It was just there, a point of stability in the chaos. The infant dragons responded. Their postures adjusted. The tension in their wings eased, and their flame sacs contracted. Their behavior started to mirror the calm of their environment, rather than fighting against it. She adjusted the lighting, dimming the harsh glare. She reduced the ambient noise, silencing the constant hum of machinery. She allowed a thermal equilibrium to form, a balance between her own calm state and theirs, before she even considered moving closer. When she finally extended a hand, she stopped just short of making contact, letting them make the final move. And they did. The dragons leaned forward on their own. There was no flinching, no surge of heat, no fear. Within the hour, feeding resumed. Consumption levels normalized, and their vital signs stabilized. No suppression fields were needed. No handlers were injured. Later, observation confirmed the dragons were finally entering natural rest cycles. The revelation was profound. The issue wasn't one of taming a beast. It was a case of developmental misinterpretation between species. Imperial doctrine treated the young dragons as weapons to be forged and controlled. The human nurse, drawing from her medical practice, treated them as infants whose sensory systems were overwhelmed and under construction. Her success wasn't about courage, it was about calibration. The Emperor ordered an immediate and total revision of protocol. The doctrine of containment was replaced with a doctrine of regulation. Handlers were retrained, taught to prioritize environmental control over physical restraint. The nurse was retained as a permanent consultant. Weeks later, the dragons were thriving, responding positively to multiple caretakers. The aggression never returned. Instead, natural bonding behaviors began to emerge. Their fire output became predictable and controlled, not through force, but through trust. The conclusion was unambiguous. The dragons were never uncontrollable. They were overwhelmed. Power had failed because understanding was absent. Stability finally emerged when the problem was approached not with force, but with empathy at the correct developmental level. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more.